Thank you for joining us again for another video. In this series, we've been dissecting how to manage household budgets. We started at $50,000 and we're progressing right on up. In this video, we're going to talk about $150,000 and how that breaks down. Now, for context, we're going to break these things down by the numbers. Feel free to adjust any of the percentages that I talk about today to make this sort of budget work for you and your family. So without further ado, let's get to it. $150,000 a year. That equates to roughly about $72 per hour. So as we've done in the other videos, we're going to break down how to manage that type of income. Whether it's two people making $75,000 each, combining for a household income of $150,000, or maybe you are where I was in my mid-30s, family, my wife was still in school, and it was just a one-income household, and I was at this income point. And when you make six figures, you've been told all your life that that is a destination where you'll begin to have some financial freedoms. Now, that can be true if you have the right system and you know your percentages and you've implemented a system to track and manage that kind of money. If you don't, you may still be feeling broke. So let's get to it. $150,000 a year equates to a gross monthly income of roughly $12,500. Now, we know Uncle Sam takes his money out first. Now, depending on what state, city, municipality you live in, your tax rate may vary. So we're just going to look at the Fed tax rate just to keep this thing simple. So we're going to look at a 24.4% tax rate on that income, which is roughly about $3,050 being deducted out of your income every single month. So again, depending on your household structure, state and municipality that you live in, this number may be significantly higher. So again, adjust your numbers based on your situation. But we're just going to look at this in a vacuum and look at the ideal situation and how we would coach you here at the Minding Our Business Academy to manage $150,000. So that leaves us with a net income of $9,450. We're going to implement the 10-10-80 system. What does that mean, Lionel? If you haven't seen one of our videos before, or you haven't seen some of our teaching here at the Minding Our Business Academy, this is a framework we developed that has worked for myself and my family as I progressed from making $60,000, $70,000 household income over 20 years ago to over $400,000 in annual income. So the first 10%, that goes to giving. So we believe here at the Minding Our Business Academy, we're a faith-fueled organization. So giving is the number one priority for us. So that would be $1,250. And you're probably saying, well, Lionel, you talked about the net. We always adjust the first two components of the 10-10-80 system is based on our gross income. So $1,250 is going to our giving, and that would be in a separate account. Kind of reference a little bit what we call the 7-account framework, which is another framework and system that layers on top of the 10-10-80 system that allows you to see where all your money is, allocate it to various purposes, and then have a series of smaller budgets inside of your larger budget. The second 10%, we believe in the pay yourself first principle. So $1,250 is going to go to our opportunity account, and that will begin to build our savings as we work towards the goal of having 6 months of our expenses in our opportunity fund. That is the goal. And ultimately, as always, the 80% is what we're trying to live on. So I'm going to shift my position here and we're going to go to the breakdown of the 80%. All right, let's break down the 80% that we're going to live off of. So as we look at this side of our whiteboard, the 80% of our $150,000 are net. We talked about $9,450. So the 80% of that is now $6,000 $950. So we're going to begin breaking down our remaining income into percentages, and we're going to follow through the 7-account framework. So we talked about the first 2 accounts, the giving account and the opportunity account, which is our savings. Now we're going to go into the operations account, one of the key accounts. We're going to allocate 50% of our net operating income to $3,475. So we're going to attempt to live on that. And I know you're thinking, Lionel, this is 2026. This is not 20 years ago when you were making this kind of money trying to take care of a family of 6. I completely understand. But again, these are ideal percentages. If you needed to adjust your percentages based on your cost of living, if you're living out on the West Coast or on the East Coast in a major city, this may not be enough to run your whole household on. I'm completely aware of that. But for some people who may be living in the South, they may be living in the Midwest, they can operate their income on this. So we're just using it as an example. But as we go through it, if you find other areas that you could adjust the percentages to increase beyond the 50%, those are the adjustments that you will make to make this work for you. So let's now talk about our maintenance account. And I've talked about this several different times. Our maintenance account is designed to help us to forecast and plan for, I wouldn't say emergencies, but different events that arrive, whether you own a car and it needs brakes, it needs tuning, it needs servicing. We want to make sure we're allocating dollars ahead of time towards our maintenance fund. So we're going to allocate 3% of our net income to our maintenance account. And that's roughly about $208.50 per month. So you can see that would leave you roughly about $2,400, give or take, for the year. So that's actually a great target. If you do not own a vehicle or your maintenance expenses would be much lower, feel free to reduce this number. And then, like I said earlier, adjust the percentage, and then whatever resources you have left over after that adjustment, reallocate it back towards your operating account. Let's move into our lifestyle account. So for many of us, this probably balloons and eats up most of our income. But what we teach here at the Minding Our Business Academy is adjust a percentage for your lifestyle. So we're not talking about your mortgage or rent, your utilities, your transportation costs. Those things aren't in the lifestyle. Are things like your shopping, your dining out, your vacations. Those would fall into the lifestyle category. And so we're going to allocate roughly about $1,737.50 every single month to our lifestyle account. If you're a single person, or you live in an area where you do more things outdoors, and maybe you don't plan on spending that much per year, because that's a significant amount at the end of the year. That's nearly $20,000 at the end of the year that we would have accumulated for vacations and eating out and dining and clothes and all of that. So if your lifestyle permits, you could reduce this by 5 or 6% and reallocate it back to your operations. Now, for most Americans, debt is a real issue. So let's move into our debt payoff account. The debt payoff account, we're going to allocate 8% towards our existing unsecured debt. We're not talking about mortgages. We're not talking about things secured by real assets. We're talking about credit cards, unsecured debt, personal loans, payday loans, those types of things. So we're going to put up $556 towards our debt every single month. And finally, we get to the account that's popular with everyone. We all want to get on a wealth plan. We all want to grow our money. So in this case, we're going to allocate 8%, just like the debt account, towards our investing account. And that's $556. So I always say, if you're employed and your employer offers matching funds, then you might be able to still allocate the 8%, but it not all come out of your net available cash. If your employer matches 3 to 6%, then you could adjust this to between 3 and 6%, or even lower get that matching funds from your employer, and still meet the 8% going into the account, but some of that money is being subsidized by your employer. If you're aggressive and you have plans and you really want to grow your wealth, then you could contribute the whole 8%. Your employer contributes another 3%. That now puts you at 11%. And then you're now building significant traction towards building your wealth, building future funds that you can use to live and sustain your lifestyle. So as you can see, with all these funds that we've allocated here, when you get to $150,000, if you really have a system and you're really paying attention to where your dollars go, you might end up in a situation like this where you actually have a 6% surplus. Now I can make some calculated decisions about how I want to impact my life. If, again, I live in an expensive area, I could add that additional $417 to my household operating account. That brings me closer to about $4,000 a month. That may be able to take care of rent and mortgage, utilities, and the basic costs that you have. With the price of gas, it might be a challenge to get that to that number. So you might be making some adjustments either in your lifestyle or some other categories where you have room. Or if you're really aggressive, you can begin to put this into an investing account or just collecting that money in a separate account. Maybe it's a money market account, and then you can start looking for real estate or different things to deploy that capital in after a few years of allowing that $5,000 or $6,000 to accumulate. And you do that over 3 or 4 years, and now you have a down payment to get yourself an income producing piece of property. So this is just an example of some of the systems and strategies that we use with our clients to manage their funds. If you make more, then find the video that shows you how to live on $200,000. If you're not quite at the $150,000 mark, we also did a video on a $100,000 budget and a $50,000 budget. So as I always say, stop scrolling and begin to mind your business. If you like this type of content that we're sharing, then like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you get notified every time we produce new budgeting and stewardship content just like this. Have a great day and go out and mind your business.